welcome back for another episode of Dollar Bin Digging. This is the video and article that I do for comicbookinvest.com where I talk about those cheap books you could still probably find tucked away in those dollar boxes, those discount bins, whether you're shopping at your LCS in the dollar bins, flea markets, yard sales, half-price books. These are the books I think you can still probably, pull out of there based off of some of the recent news, rumors, announcements, and mostly based off of the comics that came out the most recent week or two. Hopefully you're enjoying this series as well as everything else on the channel. Please let me know what you think in the comments down below. Make sure that you like, you subscribe, you hit the alert button so you don't miss anything. You keep telling your friends so we can keep growing this channel. And if you want to see this week's rundown, don't worry, I got you covered. I'll be right back after this short little break. Okay, so for this week, I will admit the end of the month is not a good time to do this show because there are honestly not a lot of new books that came out the final 5th week of the month. So I actually had to stretch it. I do have a couple that came out this week, but considering I did happen to skip this show last weekend, that means I got 2 weeks worth of comics that I can cover on this show, which is what I plan to do here today, as we're going to be completely focused today on comics and what was, tied into some of the books that we've all read the past week or two. We're going to start with this week and then go back to last week because, well, that's how I built the deck. So, starting with this week's new release books, we did have Battle World #2. So, you can see here some characters being teased from other universes, etc. So that's who we're going to go and focus in on. And that's revealed right here on the cover, but also inside the book as well. So right here, we'll go right into here where, yes, she also had her own cover for this book. And that is the character of Mystic out of Crossgen, or Giselle Villard. If that's how you pronounce it right. I'm assuming it's got some sort of accent to it. I just don't have it. But Giselle is a character that goes back to the original Crossgen universe that Marvel now owns, and it looks like, hey, they might be leveraging some of those characters. Maybe we see more of them. Could draw some interest back in those original Crossgen books because you know what? There are a lot of them, and they fill a lot of those cheap boxes. And to be honest, some of them aren't bad. I enjoyed Ruse. If you like more of a Sherlock Holmes type of storyline, Sojourn was pretty good and had some pretty cool, I think, Greg Land art on that one. Brandon Peterson, I believe, did a lot of work here on Mystic. A lot of good art, a lot of good stories in those cross-gen books. So don't ignore them just for the sake of, them being kind of outdated and the characters aren't showing up right now, because there was some quality stuff back then. With that said, most people are going to focus in on Mystic #1. And you can see here with that Brandon Peterson cover. Pretty cool. And yes, you wouldn't be wrong in wanting to pick one of these up because you could find it out there. I know Mystic is probably only known these days for everybody wanting that issue 15 because of Harry Potter's appearance in there, among other characters that showed up. But that issue 15 is one that did get hot for a time. But issue 1 is still out there. And yes, obviously, you can see the main character right here, Giselle, front and center, not only on the cover, but right there as you get into the guts of the book. And again, very cheap book. This thing sells online for $2.90 or $9. Hey, but that was actually for 2 copies. So realistically, that's $4.50 a copy. So again, not an expensive book. With listings listed for about $3.79 or $10. I think that $10 might be asking for a lot, but hey, they also have deals as well, and shipping on that is also only $1.99. So again, all things are relative. This is a cheap book. You can find this one if you want. But realistically, this isn't her first appearance. I mean, it is her first issue, and we could go the first appearance route if you want to. But if you count previews and things, well, then this cross-gen primer book introduced the entire universe before it was released. So technically, she first appeared here. Again, I get it. It's a preview book. It was also included in Wizard magazine, so or from Wizard. So you also have that kind of making it a little bit more of an oddity. But this is the type of oddity you can find in those cheap boxes, because I find plenty, and I always love grabbing those Wizard half editions and those special mail-away editions. They still all find their way into those cheap boxes because, it is what it is. Wizard ain't what it used to be. I do miss it, though. With that said, January 2000 was before, again, Mystic #1 was released. We got a teaser preview. She is right there on the cover, so I don't need to show you what's in the guts of this thing. But $2 to $10, basically. It's got a pretty wide range of how much it can actually sell for, while asking prices could be $4 to $10, or in somebody's case, they're reaching for $50, pointing out this is Josh Middleton's first published work because, yes, as I mentioned, back in those days, Middleton, Brandon Peterson, Gray Land, a lot of good artists were involved with CrossGen at its inception. So with that, hey, who knows? Maybe they'll get that $50. I doubt it when there's a $4 copy right next to it, but you never know. You can shop for what you want to shop for. But with that said, that's not the only character from another, well, let's say another universe that appears. But how about this classic Star brand? And yes, this is still part of Marvel. This was still owned by Marvel, but it was a sub imprint of Marvel where these newer characters were released back in the 80s. And that's where we did get Star brand, who does appear not only teased on the cover, but he is in that final splash page as well. Star brand is coming. And they've reworked the Star Brand character over the last few years, even having a newer version of him, like a little boy, I think, that was joined the Avengers, I think, for a time. So it's a character and a concept that has been used. I think Hulk even got the power of the Star Brand in some storyline. But we'll go back to the OG original with that JR art, which, again, it's lost a little bit of its luster these days, in my opinion, but he does have some talent there, and he did have some talent back in the day. And let's look back in the day at July of 1986, part of the Marvel New Universe, and that's when we got introduced to this character of Star Brand. So, yes, he's right there on the cover, and yes, he's all throughout the book and in the storyline, and eventually does get this cool red suit that he rocks as his costume, I guess. But again, these are other books. You've seen them. You see these New Universe Marvel books in those cheap boxes, and you can find them out there. $4, $3 is what we're talking about selling online. Copies listed for $3 up to $10. But hey, who knows? Maybe Star Brand becomes the next big thing. I know you can laugh. I doubted it too, but you never know. All I'm saying is it doesn't hurt to go and find these first appearances and tuck them away in a box if you find them for cheap, because that's what I'm telling you. Find them for $1 or $2 or $3 even in those discount boxes, because that's what I'm talking about. You never know what might happen in the future. So you find fun first, tuck them away in a box. Who knows? When the time comes, maybe you're all set and you're ready to roll with them. Now, with that said, we also got the final part of this Runaways miniseries that was tied into One World Under Doom this week. And with it, we pretty much covered all the Runaways. I mean, most of them show up in Runaways #1, and then a couple of the other characters like Victor, and then the little demon guy. I think we even counted him, Ghibli or whatever the heck his name was. I think we covered him before. Now, I'm going to cover the cat. That's right. There's the cat. So the feline herald, this cat right here, Rufus is his name, also had a first appearance. So Rufus the cat. Yes, that's what we're looking at because, well, people are going to collect Crypto and Jeff the Landshark. Why not Rufus? They make Rufus a playable character in Marvel Rivals, and all of a sudden, well, everybody will be all about Rufus, especially this time of year, Halloween time with a black cat. But anyway, Rufus first showed up in the, I think it's the second volume of Runaways in issue 4 from December of 2017. Or maybe this is the third volume, actually. Point being, it's a later run, not the original OG run of Runaways. December 2017 is where we're going to find our Rufus first appearance right here, messing around with Sister Grimm in the house there. So, cool. There you go. I don't know if Rufus was named in that first issue or the name came later, but kind of hung around throughout the subsequent runs of Runaways. So keep that in mind. And again, I don't expect this to be a big thing either. It's just kind of fun. I mean, in fact, nobody's even bought a copy of this in the last 3 months. That's right. I couldn't find a single sale of this particular book on its own. There might have been a lot or a run, but I don't want to include those. But there are copies listed looking for $3 to $4. Once again, not a pricey book, and not saying that it should. I'm talking about first appearance of an unnamed cat in this storyline, but it does tie into what we're reading today, so it is still kind of fun, and I do like actually doing this kind of stuff. So get it if you want, or just point it out. Like when you're flipping through your boxes with your buddies, you can always pull out Runaways 4 and say, the first appearance is in this one, Rufus, and you can show off your comic knowledge. Now, with all that said, You may not need the first appearance of Rufus, but you all do need supplies. And if you got to spend money on supplies, you might as well save some money while you do it. So use my code RENA10 for 10% off your entire BCW order over at BCW to get your bags, your boards, your long boxes, your short boxes, your CGC boxes, your top loaders for your cards, pages for your cards, basically anything to keep your comics or collectibles safe. You can get something over at BCW and you save some money by using my code RENA10 while you do it. You help out the channel, you get yourself a discount. You really got nothing to lose by doing so. Now, with that said, I told you there wasn't a lot this week, so we are actually going to go back to last week, since I missed it for they're doing their show anyway, and we can cover a couple of books here. Starting off with Superman. We got a few DC KO tie-ins because they did load us up right before taking a break this week. Because again, DC doesn't really release a lot of new stuff on that fifth week. They kind of wrap up miniseries and do one-shots and annuals usually on that fifth week. But Superman number 31 came out last week, and inside the guts of this book, we do have reference to this guy right here, Captain Atom. Remember him? Now, I know there's been many versions of the Captain Atom character over the years, but we're talking about Nathaniel Atom, that version of the Captain Atom that was introduced to us back in the 80s. So that's who we're talking about here from 1986, Captain Atom in his first issue. This is one of those covers I know you see in those cheap boxes too. That pink cover just jumps right out at you, and grab your Captain Atoms. And of course, you know, he's inside the guts of this book too. It takes a little while before he gets this look. I mean, they tell the whole origin story of him getting his powers, etc., and then eventually he does get this. But yes, Captain Atom. Again, it's not that expensive, even now. Copy sold for 99 cents or $1 to $6. Copies listed. Well, somebody wants $5. Somebody else wants $9, and then even a $20 ask out there. So $5 to $20. That's quite the range on the asking prices. Yeah, but you know you could find this book for cheap. You know you've seen this plenty of times. So go digging. Go grab a Captain Atom one and just stash it. That said, that would be his first issue, but I believe he actually showed up just before this, kind of teased in the history of the DC universe. Now, this is relevant now because they just recently finished up and wrapped up the new version of the new history of the DC universe, just wrapped up with issue 4. But back in 1986, there was a 2-issue series that did kind of the same thing. Kind of a retelling of the origins and histories of the DC universe. And inside this, they actually teased some things to come. So part of those teases, we did get this character of Captain Atom, as they give you a little synopsis, not much. It's like a one little panel strip on a page where they're talking about U.S. Air Force Captain Nathaniel Atom received the powers as the result of a nuclear experiment because he was coming in the following year. So they were teasing it even then in this history of the DC universe. So in theory, this little cameo, this little tease was his first before he got his own series. With that said, this also isn't an expensive book at all. Look, both issues together, about $8. So it's $4 a piece, maybe, or $2.69 or up to $10, but with free shipping. So realistically, you're paying $4 or $5 for that book, and then the rest is going into the shipping. So once again, not an expensive book, and kind of a fun and interesting little read if you want to read the 2 issues together. Again, recapping the history of the DC universe at that time, back in 1986, which, wow, it was 40 years ago. Wow, it didn't seem like it was that long ago, but yeah. I'm getting old. I'm getting old. With that said, let's check out another DC KO tie-in with Flash. So Flash number 26, Impulse Point, new last week. And in here, we do get a character appearance that I don't think I've seen in a while. When I first saw it, I thought it was the Pied Piper. Look at this, and I was like, hey, Pied Piper's back. But no, that's not the Pied Piper, because look, he's got the Philosopher's Stone in his hand. That ain't the Pied Piper. This is the Alchemist. So the Alchemist is a character, like I said, I haven't seen him in a while. I've kind of forgotten all about him, but he goes back to the 90s with his first appearance. So that's what we're going to look for in the, I think the second volume of Flash. So issue number 71, part of that great Mark Waid run from back in the day, October 1992. Yes, he did kind of revamp a lot of the Rogues Gallery, but we even increased it by adding characters like the all-new Dr. Alchemy. So this is where we got our new Dr. Alchemy, and the one that's still hanging around today in 1992. He's right there on the cover. but obviously he's in the book as well. So yeah, it's like robbing a bank or something. And then Flash, of course, foils the crime. But you can go and find this DC book. Those Flash books from the 90s, they're all out there. $3, $9 will get you a run of 5 issues. So that's less than $2 an issue for $9. Copies listed. Well, somebody wants $2 for one. Somebody else is looking for $8.50. Does this have free delivery? Yeah, free shipping on $8.50. You know what shipping costs these days. So again, you're paying like $2 for this comic. Not that expensive. Definitely a first you could find. And like I said, tuck it in a box. Now, with that said, that was Dr. Alchemy. Why did I bring this one up again? We don't need this. And why am I still pointing at Dr. Alchemy? Well, I got a dupe section in here, so let me skip through this. Sorry, I could edit this out, but you guys get to see behind the scenes. I put this in here twice, but we don't need to go through it twice. We'll just go through it quickly. Boom, 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 and check out Harley Quinn. Also new last week, issue 55. And yes, characters I want to talk about are right there on the cover, apart from Fire and Ice that you see arm wrestling with Harley. And that's not a good look. Look, the look on Harley. So granted, she's straining and arm wrestling, and you don't make the coolest of faces when you're straining your muscles and such. But most of you probably don't know who the other two are. I mean, just by that little bit of a headshot that you're getting teased, you're like, what is that? A female dead shot? Nope, it is not. But if you open this thing up and actually read the stories inside, you will learn who these characters are, starting off with Mayfly. So we got Mayfly, and then we'll get to the other one in a second. So with that, we'll start off with Mayfly. Yeah, she kind of looks like a rocket racer, I think, from the Spidey books. Remember that character? Wasn't it? Or the Human Fly? Well, I think it's tied in with the Human Fly. It's Mayfly. But she was originally, I think she was hunting down Wonder Woman back in the day. So that was her first appearance here in Wonder Woman number 78. Great Brian Boland cover here, by the way. So pick it up just for the Boland cover, But July of 1993, we are introduced to the character of Mayfly right here. And yeah, that's her. Yeah, not a pricey book. Once again, this is a cheap comic and one you could find out there. $3.50, $10 will get you 3 issues altogether. So again, $3.33 a piece. Not expensive. Copies listed right around $6, but you could find it for cheap if you go digging in boxes. And to get yourself the first appearance of Mayfly. Again, not saying she's going to be the biggest character and villain on all the world again, but who knows? Who knows? That's the type of character I see James Gunn leveraging in the future, showing up in Peacemaker season 3, or if they do a Checkmate show or something like that. But we can also look at this character, Gun Bunny, right next to her before, Harley, which you all know Harley's first, so we can't talk about that one, or no need to talk about that one. But we can wrap up and talk about Gun Bunny right here, because she also goes back to the 90s. Because, yeah, in the 90s, we got an influx of a lot of new characters. And those 90s books that I'm talking about here are those books you find just littering those dollar boxes and cheap boxes. So have at it. Have fun digging. But here we go, Gun Bunny. And yes, she has the Cyclops goggles on. And for the most part, she's had like a green theme to kind of go with her husband, or her former husband, Gunhawk, at the time, both of which showed up in the first appearance back in March of 1994 in Detective Comics. That's where I was getting December from, it's Detective. But Detective Comics, during Night Quest, issue 674, we've got Gunhawk and Gun Bunny both right there taking on our Batman at the time. I think this is Jean-Paul Valley. Azrael had been taking over the mantle for a stretch. Interesting times back in the 90s. But here she is. Also inside the guts of this book, you can see Gun Bunny. Very cheap book, just like the others. I'm telling you, you can find these out there. $4, $20 for a CGC 9.6 DC Universe variant. And that $4 is also for a DCU variant. I know my buddy Bruce probably knows all about this because he's a big DCU, the DC Universe collectors. The little logo, instead of the the barcode or the direct sales, they were special releases. He's got a whole series of those. If you're interested, go check him out on his channel, Kingdom of Nerds. But $20 for a CGC 9.6, that's less than the cost of grading, folks. So somebody actually paid to give it away. That said, copies listed $6 or $1.60. And yes, they want $6 for the DCU, while the regular edition $1.60, and that's discounted. They had it listed for $2 and they had to mark it down because nobody was buying it at $2. And I'm not saying that you should, but hey, why not? You've bought worse things for $1 or $2. So go dig in a box, go find some of these first. And if you do, tag me, post me on Instagram, send me a message, or even comment in this video down below and say, yeah, I was out at the shop and you convinced me. I picked up the first appearance of Mayfly or Gun Bunny just for fun. Kind of like a scavenger hunt challenge, if you will, because that's kind of why I'm doing this. It's just having some fun. You never know. Some of these characters could break out in the future and be worth something, but mostly we know that's not going to be the case. And there's nothing wrong with that. Comics can be more than just about, hoping for that big score on a flip. So with that said, hopefully you enjoyed this quick little show. I wanted to get another one of these out because I did skip last week, but try to get back on a regular schedule and get some more content out your way. So thanks for all the support. Thanks for all your patience, and I will see you all later. All right.